It's time for The Perspective with your hosts, Pastor Mike Sherbino, who's always got a good old-fashioned joke or two, but most importantly, new perspectives on God's love that will lift you up, and Julie Stoutland, whose steadfast devotions and dedication will inspire you. On The Perspective, we welcome a host of thought leaders, healers, followers, seekers, all to hear God's voice as we ask, as the psalmist did, let the morning bring us word of your unfailing love.
Well, welcome to The Perspective. And I know you haven't been counting, but we have. This is our 266th program. And helping me co-host for the majority of those programs has been the lovely Julie Stoutland. Julie, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And this is kind of an exciting day, 266 shows.
I know.
But it's a sad day because you're not
I
going to be sitting there in the full-time position anymore. You're going to be kind of like a pitch hitter every once in a while.
Yep.
And I just want you to know you will be missed.
Aw,
and
thanks.
What you've contributed to the program has been huge.
Aw,
And
thank you,
I could
Mike.
never pay you enough for laughing at all my bad jokes.
Oh, thank you.
But anyways, we got two amazing
Yes, we do.
authors today. We're going to jump into the program, but I
Definitely.
just wanted to say that at the beginning.
Aw,
We'll have a little more fun
appreciate
later
that.
on that
Oh,
you don't
no.
know about.
No.
So anyways, hang with us.
Okay.
But we've got Ben Wendell and Roger Heelan with us today.
Yes.
And Benjamin is going to be with us first and foremost. Benjamin, thank you for joining us from California, but also from another country. Welcome.
Hey, thank you guys. It's great to be a part of your show today.
We'll let people try to figure out where you're from with that accent that is nothing to do with the Americas. But
Yeah, I'm sure they'll catch on as we converse.
They sure will. You have written, your latest book is called Good Catastrophe, and it's all about hope. So tell us why you wrote it, how you wrote it, what inspired you. And obviously hope is needed more than ever today, but I want to hear it from your words.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, Good Catastrophe for me is a blueprint for people to find their way out of pain. I've been a pastor for over 20 years, and so the genesis of this book was really writing out of a pastoral need. You know, I think we're living in very unique times. And as a pastor, you get the privilege of walking with people through the valleys of life. And I wanted to help people discover how to unlock the force of hope in life's hardest fights. If you think about the cultural moment today, I mean, take the CDC's most recent survey that found 57% of teenage girls in the United States said that they felt persistently sad or hopeless.
That's ridiculous.
57%. I mean, these are huge numbers.
Huge.
So I think there is a unique cultural moment where some dark clouds have gathered on the horizon, and there is a desperate need for the transcendence that hope in Jesus brings, and that's what this book is all about. It's about helping let the light in.
You know, Ben, you mentioned in your book about a phrase that you took from J.R.R. Tolkien's catastrophe. Could you, I might have said that wrong, could you explain that and why you used it?
I went searching for an English word let's start there, for a word that captured that good comes from bad. You know, it was so difficult to find. I looked in a range of different languages, but then I found this term in the writings of J.R.R. Tolkien, you know, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, EU catastrophe, translated good catastrophe. So he had this philosophy that when the main character of his books were at their lowest moment, down and out, there was no way out, midnight hour, there would be a sudden turn towards joy. That good would come out of that midnight hour. And so I borrowed that phrase to become the title of my book, Good Catastrophe, to really show people that God reaches into our deepest pain and he turns it towards his greatest good. That's the power of hope.
You know, you talk about hope, and many would say that it's an overused word in our lives, but that's the reason if we lose hope, we lose pretty much everything.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that a little bit and how you work around that word hope to revive it.
I'm not sure that it's overused, but it's misused. And,
Okay.
I've been raised in the church my entire life. And, the narrative can start to sound like, put your hope in God and your life will be blessed in a way that looks like a postcard perfect life. And we're very good at talking about favor and breakthrough and goodness. And I mean, all of those things, yes, we should keep talking about them. But what happens is mud gets thrown on the beautiful postcard version of our lives. And we have a whole generation of people that don't know what to do in that moment. Imperfections, anxiety, loss, or a storm hits. So we need hope, but we need a robust version of hope that works in real life. And that's really what I'm articulating in this book, that hardship and hope together can do something for us that a problem-free life never could. This isn't about just removing pain. This is about how to use your pain.
Wow. I have to jump in and add this little question because I know we have such a short time here, but it really stuck with me when I read about the fact that you talk about a flawed instrument and a story that you pulled from and how we can hang on to hope even if we are a flawed instrument. Can you tell us a little bit about that story and the impact that the takeaway we can take from it?
1975. Keith Jarrett is driving from Switzerland to the Cologne Opera House in Germany, and he has requested a specific piano, the Bosendorfer 290 Imperial Concert Grand. But a mistake was made, and they put the wrong piano on the stage, and some of the keys didn't work. The pedals got stuck. It was terribly out of tune. So Jarrett has a decision to make. I mean, it's this, he's got back pain. It's been a long drive, but 1,400 people are sitting in the room. He makes the courageous decision to step out and play for over an hour on a broken piano. He improvises. He changes the composition to compensate for the broken keys. Now, let me just say this. The Cologne concert has sold over 4 million albums. It's the best-selling instrumental album of all times.
That's crazy.
And here's the point, right? We would think that album would have been made in the best studio with the nicest microphones and so forth. But this is a masterpiece, not because of its perfection, but because of the beauty and art that only comes from a flawed instrument. And the big idea is this: none of us get the Bosendorfer 290. We all have a broken piano to play, but God brings the most beautiful masterpieces from broken pianos. And every person that's listening to this, you still have a song to sing.
What a lesson.
Yeah, that
What a
is
lesson.
a powerful story. Just take a moment or two and talk to us about the thesis of your book. I mean, we know it's what you've just described, but where are you drawing your resources from? I know the story of Job must play into it a little bit, but was that a key one for you?
It was. In the last year, for me, I've lost my brother, 2 grandparents, and I've been through a lot of life change. Frankly, I felt like I fell into a dark hole and didn't know how to get out. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. We need a hope that shows up for us when we don't get the endings that we want. And I found that version of hope in the life of Job. However, I think the treatment that we often give that story needs to be revisited. And I do that in this book. And hopefully what I present fits the shape of what a lot of people are experiencing right now in their lives. And so this is a gritty and unique take on the story of Job that helps people understand how God takes our pain, he takes our adversity, and he turns it into our human flourishing.
Such a needed message.
Man, it's so powerful. Ben, thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. We look forward to seeing this book travel a lot of miles to people. And I'm assuming that people can get a hold of it at Amazon or at bookstores nearby. Let me encourage you, if you need hope, and we do, pick up a copy of Benjamin Wendell's book, Good Catastrophe. Thank you again, Ben, for being with us.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
All right, stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back.
So, is Bible study hard? And does it take discipline and time? Yes, like no course like this, no video can remove the work that it takes. But I've found this, when people are passionate about something, they will learn a new skill, even a new language. I mean, when my wife and I traveled to Japan, you know what we were doing for months before? We're on our phone and we're learning Japanese words. And then we look at the Bible and say, oh, well, hang on, the original language is Hebrew or Greek. I could never learn any of that. But wow, you speak to somebody who's into Shakespeare, they'll read his works with a dictionary next to them to help them understand it. What am I saying? Yes, there are some challenges sometimes to reading scripture, but instead of seeing that as a barrier, embrace it. See that as a part of the fun, the adventure, the process of discovery. Find the tools that you need in order to really understand scripture.
Well, we enjoyed chatting with Benjamin Wendell, but I'm also looking forward to our conversation with another author and a prayer warrior, Roger Heelan. Roger, thanks for being with us.
Privileged to be spending this time with you and Julie. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, and Roger, you're with Evangelical Fellowship of Canada, and they've been on, we featured that program earlier in the week, so we kind of feel like we're getting a double dose, which is a real good thing. Glad you're with us.
It's fun being with EFC as prayer ambassadors, so thanks for having me on the show with you guys.
I know Julie's got a question for you right out of the gate.
Well, I mean, Roger, you're a prayer warrior and a writer. I mean, what a great mix. Tell us about your latest book called Pursuing God's Presence. It's an increasingly difficult thing in an age of everything but God. So talk to us about your book.
Well, over the years, I even as I go back to my own conversion experience, I realized that seeking the presence of God is really a prominent biblical theme, but it's not necessarily taught or practiced as much as I think we ought to expect in our lives and in our churches. And yet it's becoming more and more of a prominent theme in worship and teaching, and even places like Asbury University, which again, the bottom line sort of foundation that they point to is encountering the presence of God as they sought him through prayer, through worship, through repentance for renewal and revival. So that's been a current theme that's been, I think, being developed over the last while, but certainly in my own journey, it's something that I've been exploring for several decades. So Pursuing God's Presence is designed to be a practical guide of daily renewal and joy for the average believer.
That is, it makes it almost seem like it's possible that we can have this connection with God. Just give us a couple tips, likely out of your book, on pursuing God's presence. What do I have to do to experience God and his presence?
Well, I'd say, first of all, make it a priority. We have lots of priorities. When we search for or seek for things that are really important, we kind of drop things and we focus on that. For example, if you lost your wallet, if you lost your smartphone or your computer, or you lost a child in a store or at a playground, guess what happens? Everything gets set aside. That becomes your primary focus until that situation is discovered, or that person, whatever. Same with God. We are told to basically seek the Lord and his presence, seek his presence continually. Psalm 105, verse 4. And that means without intermission. It means it's a priority. It is what he's designed us for. And so I believe that as we seek the presence of God, we will encounter him in ways that are transformational and compelling in life and leadership. So,
yeah, I understand you also use the Hebrew word kavod, and I'm never any good at understanding this stuff. So I really like you to unpack, what does kavod mean, and how does it help us understand pursuing God's presence?
First of all, it's pronounced kavod.
See, I'm wrong already.
This is a really common sort of interpretation of the word kavod. It's actually kavod. I love the Hebrew word. It's kind of like shalom. It's
Okay.
hard to really translate it, but it's translated most regularly as glory. But even the word glory itself is hard to unpack. But basically, the Hebrew word that depicts the presence of God, it refers to the weight of his presence. It means to be heavy. So it refers to his honor, his position, his majesty, his magnificent perfections, and it's the radiance of his person. So we call it glory. So when we seek the presence of God, we will experience his manifest presence that the Bible would refer to as the kavod of God. It's remarkable. Love the word.
Yeah.
Roger, you've written several books. I think 7 other ones, if I have the number correct.
Right. Yeah.
How does the writing of this book compare to the other ones? What sets this one apart?
I think what sets this one apart is I think it's really, for me, a culmination of a lifetime of study. I've been a pastor, a denominational leader, a seminary adjunct professor, and an author, and I've written on a variety of different topics, but they all seem to converge around a common theme of bringing revitalization and renewal. And I really believe biblically, historically, as you explore revivals and renewals, that the presence of God is really the prevailing posture and practice that supersedes all. And so I'd say this, in some ways, this is a magnum opus for me, is that it's accumulation of a lifetime of leadership and study, seeking the presence of God and helping people really grapple with that and seek him, experience him, and host his presence.
Now, we seek him personally, but how can the church rise out of what you write about, its stagnation, as a community, not just as an individual seeking his presence?
Right. One way that I think that we can approach church life and what we're trying to accomplish, particularly in our gatherings, is that what is driving the focus and the purpose? What's the outcome? Is it to sing songs and listen to sermons? Is it to offer programs and offer a place of community for the people of God? And I would say, of course. But I would say, what drives that? And I would say biblically that when we seek the presence of God as the outcome for our scripture reading, our liturgy, our singing, our sermons, that we open up the channels where we enter the habitation of God, and he wants to reside in his people and in his church. Jesus said, "My house shall be a house of prayer." And the temple is the place of God's habitation. It's the place of his kavod. And so I think it behooves us to seek his presence as we gather together. And we have a lot of teaching in the Bible around what that looks like and how to do that and what the results of that will be in terms of the encounter with God.
You know, Roger, when we talk about prayer, many times in some of our viewers might think, well, it's something I want to do if I get in a jam, if I'm desperate. I sat in a hospital room just a couple days ago beside a total stranger, and within a couple moments, he shared with me that he had terminal cancer, and he was suddenly very open to prayer and was happy for me to pray for him. Why do you think that is, as opposed to, as we're just walking through life, the guys maybe we play hockey with? What is it that God has to do to get our attention?
Again, it's encounter. When we encounter the Lord, or I should say, even as he encounters us, it opens up that channel, that pathway to really know him. And I believe that prayer has been given as the primary practice, where we also mingle that with a practice of God awareness. And the extent that we are aware of God, his omnipresence, but his manifest presence, is the extent to which I think prayer becomes now communion and communication with God, not just offering requests and having lists of things that we're asking from God in like a cell phone conversation with one way, and when we're done, we kind of hang up. I think prayer, and there's a revitalization of prayer across the country that centers in seeking his presence. So when we encounter the Lord, I think through prayer, and we see answers and we see results to that encounter, it stimulates and it cultivates a hunger and a passion to connect with God in all areas of life. And I talk about this in my book, in the areas of discipleship, in our home, in our workplace, in the church, on mission, and in our communities. And Jack Deere says this, we're a talking church, but the early church was a praying church. So I think we need to recalibrate our theology and our practice and see prayer as communion and communication with God.
Well, Roger, I just want to thank you for coming on the program. And that was a powerful comment that you just made about what you believe and I believe that God is calling us to be. I want to encourage people to get a copy of Pursuing God's Presence by Roger Heelan. You can get it through Amazon and in bookstores near you. Roger, thank you for being with us today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. God bless you, both of you.
Okay, stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back.
Julie Stoutland, not in this order, is a news anchor, amateur fencer, avid paddleboarder, dog lover, talk show host, and before her two beautiful daughters came along, she was a church and conference speaker and motivational coach. She's an author, longtime bride, and former beauty queen. A self-confessed trauma queen whose life story is full of catastrophe and redemption. Julie is a bright light who brings insight and harmony here to The Perspective. Over the past few seasons, Julie has made the interviews with guests from all walks of life more enlightening. And most importantly, she shared her steadfast faith and devotion to Jesus, as well as her honesty and integrity in front of and behind the camera. This isn't goodbye, though. Julie will still be co-hosting with Mike in our new upcoming season in September. From all of us behind the scenes at The Perspective, thank you, Julie.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know that was coming.
We just had to slide that in a little bit.
Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
We got to have some fun every once in a while.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. We saw the paddleboard, but we didn't see out on the lake. So you actually really go out on the lake?
It's too cold yet. Yeah, so I'm waiting to go out on the lake. I see you got my little fluffer, as we call her.
Yeah, we got that. And we got the picture of you in the beauty pageant way back when.
Way back. That's the first one right there. That's the Turkey Queen one. That's the
Sorry,
gold.
which one?
That's the Turkey Queen one right there.
The Turkey Queen. Okay, well,
That's
if you've won that one, you've won them all.
That's the only one that Tora cares about. He doesn't care about any other one.
Yeah, but he's your husband. He can joke about that. I can't. Okay, so I'll just let everybody's mind make the connection. But you have been so appreciated, as I said at the beginning of the show, and we'll miss having you here all the time. But you'll come back every once in a while. You know, if Mitch is not laughing at my jokes, I'll be calling you right away.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. And we had two great authors.
We did.
Yeah.
You know, Ben's story and what he's recently gone through, and obviously, you know, my story of several losses as well. And I just resonate with the fact that there's so many people out there who are seeking hope and they feel like they've gone through something. And you know, you have Roger that's saying, you know, how are we going to get through this except pursuing the presence of God and through prayer? And I think what a great combination having them today.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to conclude our teaching on the book of James, well, at least on chapter 1 about getting angry.
Okay.
Yeah, so don't get angry with me, okay? All right, hang with us. Folks, we're going to be right back in just a moment. So here we come into the book of James. It's chapter 1, and he's told us this principle. You've heard it. He says, let everyone be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Folks, that is the WD-40 for relationships. But you know, it just doesn't happen automatically. You got to press the little button on the top of the can. And maybe there's some people around you that love you enough to say, you know what, you need to be sprayed down a little bit with WD-40 because you're a little cranky, you're a little hot under the collar, you're frustrated. Listen to those warning signs. One of the greatest gifts that God's given to me is an amazing wife. And sometimes, as only a spouse can say when they're loving you, she says, you know, you're really cranky. What's got under your skin? What's bugging you? And we talked about anger yesterday and how there's different kinds. There's the kind that just, boom, it explodes, and there's, there's carnage everywhere. There's the other stuff that gets under the skin, and for a day or two or maybe a week, you're just a miserable person to be around. Let's call it for what it is. And then there's the other. It's just like a heat-seeking missile. It locks on, and you're angry with that person for all of your life, or maybe for a year or 2 years. And families get split apart with that. James is talking to the church, and he's saying, listen, brothers and sisters, that's not how we're supposed to be. And if anything is going to change the environment around us, it's when we choose to love people despite what they do to us. We got to learn to let go of the anger. And it's the context of talking about being quick to listen, hear people's heart, slow to speak, and slow to be angry. And he says the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. It doesn't show his character. So then he says some kind of harsh words. He says, put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. Here's what it means. If I'm going to represent Christ and I got a problem with my temper, I need to say, Lord, I want to surrender to you. I'm going to receive the word. And God says, his word is, I'm not to act that way. You know, I need to put a zipper on my lipper. I need to make sure that I'm just not boiling and seething underneath. And it's when I come to the word of God, I see the examples in it. I see Jesus who said, Father, forgive them for they don't know what they're doing. I see Stephen, the first martyr of the Christian church, as he's being stoned to death, he says, Lord, don't lay this sin against them. And James, perhaps with some of that as the context, because he had not died yet for his faith either. He says, be doers of the word and not hearers only. Here's the antidote for anger, you know, because it's a poison. He said, get rid of all moral filth. In Colossians 1, chapter 3, verse 12, it says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Wow. Then he says, bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. And then as we just read, he says, humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. Folks, you need to be saved from your anger. You need to surrender that to God. It will destroy your relationship. It will destroy your relationship with him as well. So what's the action plan for life? He says, if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he's like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror. I got 5 daughters. And you know, folks, our house had so much hair product and beauty product. If Shoppers Drug Mart ran empty, they could call us and we could have supplied them. But one of the things they had was this mirror that they looked into. And they flipped the mirror over and it enlarges everything so you can see every follicle in the skin. And that's what James is saying. If you look intently into the mirror, you can see yourself for what you are. But he says, if you just walk away and forget about it, you're not going to be different. And he says, as you look into the mirror of God's word and he speaks to you about your anger problem today, you can walk away or you can say, Lord, I want you to change me. And he'll hear that prayer. Things can change, the climate can change, and the dog's going to wag his tail when you come home, when you surrender your anger to Jesus, because he has made it possible through what he did on the cross for you and I to have victory. Claim it today. Thanks for listening.